Welcome to another episode of In the Lab. I have with me again, as always, the nefarious geneticist Shadowmeld. How you doing, Patrick?
I'm doing great.
All right, so what are we looking at today?
I'm calling this team a thinking man's team. It's a little inner workings of how Dice Masters works. Its win condition is not as typical as some other win conditions. It's kind of the equivalent of a mill team in Magic, where your objective isn't to defeat your opponent's hit points, it's to make them draw all of their cards in their deck and win the game that way. This team is going to do something similar. It's going to lock my opponent into drawing 4 sidekicks every turn and never let them actually get to their characters. Hopefully.
As always, this team is going to be the featured team this week on the new Reserve Pool podcast. Thank you for coming in and giving us a preview on this, but it looks like you won the roll-off, so we'll go ahead and start with you.
All right.
I know I didn't mention it, but on our right side we actually have a recurring guest of ours, Jordan, who's come back with his Bolt team. With this first couple turns, what are you looking to do?
I'm looking to get sidekicks out of my bag so that I can buy the things I need. And so I'm keeping one question mark so that I can buy the character I want, whether it's a 2-cost, 3-cost, or 4-cost if all else fails. And I'm trying to re-roll for as many sidekicks as possible. And so I got 3, and that's good for me. Seeing that my opponent is playing a Lantern Ring team that's going to be using lots of globals, I'm going to buy a Wasp to try and start punishing him early while I'm ramping up to my other cards. And again, I put my sidekick out on the field and I'm good to go.
So again, we're looking at the rare Wasp. While Wasp is active, when your opponent uses a global ability, she deals 1 damage to them. So definitely a very controlled portion of your team here. Looking at your other cards, you've also got Lissadrak, the Common, Storm, we've got Windrider, Brainiac, Terror of Condor, which is really, that's an interesting card. We haven't seen that much, I think, in any kind of conversation in the meta right now. So I'm interested to see that going underway. What's his part in the team?
Brainiac helps me maintain the lockdown. If I'm putting 4 sidekicks in your bag and there's something else in the bag that I don't want you to draw, or I at least don't want you to draw 2 cards at exactly the same time, he's there to put that card back in the bag, or that die back in the bag, and hopefully have you draw back out a sidekick. So that when I throw 4 more sidekicks in there, you're struggling to get that 1 die out of your bag every time. Now, I did just get Red Dragon globaled, and he bought Lantern Ring first turn. Really solid purchase for him, and I am already way behind. This team is one of the better counters to what I'm playing with, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and buy a Halfling Thief and hopefully get my lockdown started a little bit as we're going. We'll see how it goes. I may also just let the Halfling Thief come up energy next time I draw it to either pay for Wasp or hopefully ramp into like a Storm or Brainiac so I can keep my opponent's field clear.
Yeah, this is a very interesting Halfling Thief you've got. So it's more manipulation of the bag. While Halfling Thief is assigned to attack, you may move up to 2 of your opponent's dice from his used area to his bag. So is that kind of the theme for the team this week?
Yeah, the theme is basically I want my opponent to only draw 4 sidekicks every turn, and Brainiac allows me to manipulate. Halfling Thief puts 2 in the bag every time she attacks. 2 sidekicks from the used pile into the bag. So it's a really solid, I just attack with her every chance I can get some damage in, maybe, but also put the sidekicks in the bag and not worry about my opponent coming in and attacking me.
And with that turn, it looks like you went ahead and bought a Fatality. So being a Bolt-centric team, we're definitely going to see that Iceman Global plus the Lantern Ring come into play. This Lantern Ring is probably the most popular one right now. Continuous while active. When your character attacks, they deal 1 damage to target player for each energy symbol in your reserve pool that matches their type, while Iceman's Global allows him to convert any of those sidekicks paying 1 bolt into bolts themselves, basically feeding the barrage of the Lantern Ring. Now, I know I felt that a couple games back in the field, so excited to see what you can do against that. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm realizing that I might need a little bit faster damage than I would normally produce on this team, so I'm going to utilize my opponent's devices against him, and I'm going to buy one of his magic missiles. 2 reasons. One, I have adventurers on my team, so I can utilize those magic missiles better than my opponent, who has no adventurers. And 2, I can red dragon my opponent to even our life back up and do 1 damage. And 3, on top of that, I can also use it to prep a sidekick or clear some of my opponent's board, and while I'm burning away his life. So yeah, I did Red Dragon Global, and I bought Magic Missile and fielded my sidekick, and I'm going to keep a mask, and we'll see what I do with it.
Yeah, options for mask right now. You've got pretty much the standards for the control components. You've got distraction, pay a mask to remove 1 attacker from the attack zone to field. We're also seeing Mr. Fantastic, pay a mask, target character must attack this turn. So those are definitely great in terms of clearing those things you don't want on the board, either off or keeping them, the things you do want on the board there. So that's great.
Now, my opponent just missed his first Lantern Ring, which is an amazing advantage for me. It gives me almost enough time to get the lockdown on before that Lantern Ring just burns through me. He does field Fatality. I do take 3 damage because of that. And he now has the option to purchase something with bolts or even clear all my sidekicks and attack with Fatality to get another 3 damage in, whatever he wants to do with it. And so I'm a little under pressure here, but like you mentioned, I have the distraction. So if I don't want her to die, she doesn't have to.
Really, we're seeing here just a beautiful synergy on Jordan's side with Fatality, like you just took, taking that 3 damage from those bolts. But even if he hadn't rolled those bolts, he can utilize the Iceman Global, which then he can use once Fatality attacks with the Lantern Ring to deal that damage. And then on top of that, if he either wanted to clear something of yours, he could use Magic Missile or Invulnerability to pump. So definitely a ton of synergy on this team, which is great to see. I think that a lot of people anticipated Lantern Ring used on Bolt teams. I know there's also heavy uses of the Fist teams. But I mean, what do you think moving forward? What are going to be probably the top tier Lantern Ring teams that you think, Patrick, we're going to see out there?
I think a Bolt Lantern Ring team and a really cheap Fist team will both have some really good synergy. Like Serena and Ring are pretty solid. So I took 1 damage because he attacked. Oh wait, no, I didn't take 1 damage. I keep thinking the Ring is out there and it's not. So I ended up getting Sidekick prepped. It's good for me, but probably only because I'm going to be 2 fielding costs this turn. So we'll see how it goes. Especially if I'm paying this really expensive Wasp fielding cost. But my opponent missed his Lantern Ring. Wasp helps me start the damage cycle. I'm going to get it moving. I'm going to keep the Fist just in case. All right, perfect. I'm just going to field everything this turn.
That Wasp is going to put pressure on him, so if he does want to continue to convert, it's going to cost him a life each time, which is a great move on your part.
Right, exactly. So Fatality may end up doing 3 to me, but he takes 1 to do it. It helps mitigate a little bit on how that's going to work. I pass priority to Jason, see if he wants to do anything with his bolt, and then I know in his bag he has 4 sidekicks. I'm sorry, Jordan, not Jason. I know he has 4 sidekicks, and I don't really want him to get his ring, so I'm going to do everything I can to make that not happen. But again, we have to wait and see if he's going to do anything with his bolt. All right, and he passes back to me. I attack with the Halfling, and I move the Fist, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and move the Shield Agent. He's a problem because he can reroll my Wasp, but it's 1 die further that his ring is from ever entering play. So now we'll see whether he wants to block me or let it through and take 2 damage. And he's going to double block with sidekicks to get me KO'd.
Now, do you take both of those out, or do you think it would be better to leave 1 so he doesn't get the extra ramp?
You know what? I'm going to take out both of them because the Iceman Global makes fielded sidekicks more powerful than sidekicks at any given turn. And also, by killing his sidekicks, I have a 5 out of 6 chance that they end up are going to the used pile, and I want his dice in the used pile. So I may have to suffer through a turn of him purchasing something, but if he buys something and it never actually gets to his bag, that's not a problem. So I kill both sidekicks. I end my turn. It's now Jordan's turn.
Yeah, looking back at that Lissa Drac, it looks like her and the Halfling Thief kind of play hand in hand. This is, again, the common while Lissa Drac is active. At the start of your attack step, name a character. If at least one of those character die blocks, you may move 2 dice from your opponent's used to their bags. That's potentially with both of those guys. That's 4 dice you're putting into his bag.
Right, and my opponent only draws 4 dice. So he only gets to use what's on the field or whatever the 4 dice he gets, of which most of them are probably going to be sidekicks. So it'll be interesting if I can get that lockdown down and keep him out of play, or keep his cards out of play. Now again, he did just get the shield agent, and that might be a problem for my wasp. We'll see what happens.
Right, and this shield agent being the rare, during your roll and reroll step, you may reroll any number of shield agents or Avenger character dice. So this being ruled that it does not specify yours or opponent, so he can definitely target that wasp for the next turn when he does have that reroll step. Looking at what else he has, he does have a sidekick and a couple energy there, 4 energy. Moving forward, what do you think he's probably going to do? I mean, he's got some removal components. He's got definitely more aggressive components to power that ring up once he actually gets it out. But what are you looking at his team that you're really worried about other than the ring? Is there anything that you kind of need to anticipate?
Anything that does direct damage. So more fatalities might be an issue. Like he's bought 1 already. So more fatalities can be an issue. Anything like I said, anything that does direct damage can be an issue coming against me. And so we'll see what he decides to do and if he decides to save. But the Punisher, he brought Magic Missile, so I might be able to kill the Punisher before he attacks. But we'll see. Now, he did just say he's doing Red Dragon Global. Or maybe he's not. He's having a difficult turn.
Yeah, definitely a turning point here of what he purchases next. With 2 dice left in his bag, you have the option now this next turn. You're going to get the Halfling Thief potentially to put 2 more dice in that bag, so you're going to fill his bag with the remainder. And it looks like the only things he's purchased are actually already out on the field of what we see. So there's 2 sidekick dice. So you really do have the control factor when you do have her out, getting, you making the decision of what he's going to pull next turn, which is huge.
Absolutely. And if I get the lockdown this turn, it's unlikely that I'll get a Lissa Drac for the next turn. So he's going to get a bag reset before I get a full lockdown. So he will have another shot at his Lantern Ring almost no matter what I do. So for me right now, I need to look at maybe getting a bigger answer and not trying to get Lissa Drac. Maybe getting Brainiac so that I can keep putting the ring back in the bag and chipping away at him with my Magic Missile that I've purchased. Or maybe Storm to be able to put his characters in the used pile and then get the lockdown down. Because the ring doesn't do anything for you if all you're drawing is sidekicks. Sidekicks can't trigger the ring. So that's another option. Both are difficult though. So
it looks like he is going to go ahead and end his turn, which is going to prevent you from being able to put those dice if he does not decide to spend them prior to the attack step.
Right.
I guess is a great strategy up against your team. But going back to what you were saying about Storm, what's the win condition here? I know I see a lot of manipulation of the bag, but what's your end goal in terms of trying to deal the damage? How does that play out?
So generally I end up using health as a resource, forcing the characters into the used pile. Once I get the lockdown down, I force his characters to attack me and send them to the used pile. Either Storm will allow me to do damage by re-rolling his sidekicks and putting them in the used pile, or I'll just be able to swing in with a couple sidekicks and Mystic Box some damage in if he still has a character out. It's kind of a combination of just chipping away at him as often as I can, but it also requires me getting that lockdown down early. And let's see, I could I could use the magic missile because, like you said, I'm not going to stop the ring next turn. So I think I'm going to keep the generic so I can go big, which also means I want to keep pretty much everything. I'm going to reroll these two and maybe get a sidekick. Yeah, okay. And I got a sidekick. So I will field a sidekick, and I will buy myself that storm because I'm not going to stop the ring, and it's unlikely that he'll miss it. And then I'll keep this question mark just in case I have a global I want to use, and I'll pass priority.
So again, he does have the option here to spend dice since he didn't get that halfling thief. So really, the only downside to things would be him taking damage for utilizing those globals with your wasp out there, pinging him for one. So he could do a 1-for-1 using the wasp global.
He very well could, yeah, absolutely.
But
unfortunately for him, I also still have a question mark, so it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Right.
Now he'll get to reroll my wasp during his roll and reroll step because he has the shield agents out on the board. So it'll be interesting to see if I keep a character face. It's a 50-50 chance for me. All right. He's going to wasp global me, and he's going to take one himself because of the wasp. And I'm not going to do anything else, and I'm going to end my turn, so he's not going to get those dice. And so the one thing that does happen here is he's now got an 8-die bag, so there's a chance he won't get Lantern Ring this turn, which will be very, very good for me. We'll see how it goes. All right, no Lantern Ring. Whew.
So, but he does have the bolt, so he can go ahead and I guess remove what he needs to using the Iceman Global if he chooses to do that.
But right, I have to reroll a wasp. Hold on.
Go and do that. Yeah.
And my level 3 wasp rerolls to level 3. We were making the joke before that my characters always reroll to level 3, and maybe that's why I'm so good at this game, because Storm hates me, and Shield Agents hate me, and Umber Hulk hates me, but I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things. All right, so he has a bolt, and he has not rerolled yet. I'm not sure if he's going to. We will see. He did reroll. He got 2 masks and 2 bolts, which is good for him because it gives him a little versatility. Don't know that he has enough to kill my wasp. I don't know that he has enough to put any pressure on me. So at this point, he may just want to buy something, but it's up to him.
Yeah, next turn it does look like he's going to be pulling out the power ring. Potentially, if you do not get that halfling thief again, if you get the halfling thief, you can hedges bets a little bit by putting more of those sidekick dice into his bag. So that's good on you for that. But odds of you pulling it out again are pretty rough with only 3 dice left.
Well, I'm going to force the shield agent, who only has 2 attacks since he spent all of his energy, who only has 2 attack, and I'm going to force him to attack me, and I'm going to let him hit me in the face and go to the use pile. That's one less character I have to worry about, and if I can get the lockdown up and running, the health that I lost doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm enjoying that trade-off. He's not saving energy for globals because he's worried about my wasp, so that's also good for me.
Now, do you have a stabilization point basically on your team where if you get below a certain life, it's pretty tough to come back from?
Yeah, usually if you get below 10, it's pretty hard. And with wasp on my team, if I get down to 5, that's just a clock because all my opponent has to do is wasp global me with all of his energy. He may only be getting 4 sidekicks every turn, but all he has to do is wasp global me on his turn, my turn, his turn, my turn, and then one more time, and that's 5 damage right there. And he doesn't even have to have anything else, just 4 sidekicks. And so that's just something to be really aware of, is that your wasp can be a problem for you.
Now, at this point with what you've got there, I know you brought the Goblin Attack Force Global to pay a fist. Target monster must block this turn. Would you? I know we were talking about earlier. Sidekicks are really a resource for him at this point. Would that be something you try and go after using that fist, or what? What would you? What's your next play? What would you purchase?
I was actually thinking that just now, but I'm also going to try something different instead. And I'm going to go ahead and buy the Lyssidrak because I do want to get her into the cycle of things. And I'm going to keep this shield instead. And I want to get a little bit of ramp because I'm going to have some fielding costs next turn. So I'm going to attack with these 2 sidekicks, and we'll see what he does.
Right, and again, that shield there you're saving used for Mystic Box Global, which I know you're very fond of. Pay a shield, swap the attack value of one of your monsters with that of an opposing monster.
So he chose not to block me, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Mystic Box Global to swap Fatality's 3 attack with my 1 sidekick's 1 attack, so that he takes 4 damage from the 2 sidekicks instead of 2 damage. So the shield basically turned into a double Wasp Global in the long run, or a double invulnerability. And that's why I love Mystic Box, is because you can get some 2-for-1, 3-for-1, 4-for-1 value out of your energy.
Right, definitely puts your opponent on the back end, trying to gauge how he can manipulate, or how you're going to manipulate that, and guessing. So it always just gives you another control option, which is great for your team in particular, since it's so reliant on getting to that point where you're manipulating his bag, you're manipulating his board. So, but it looks like he did roll the Lantern Ring, which is
wow.
That's actually almost a perfect turn there.
That is a crazy reroll on his end. Wow. Yeah. 4 sidekick or 3 sidekicks, and he landed the Lantern Ring. That is really good. Now, the good news on that is that Fatality can't attack this turn and do any damage to me, so I have a chance to come up with an answer. But we will see how that goes.
Yeah. You've also got Storm in the bag, and this Storm, Wind Rider, when fielded, reroll up to 2 opposing characters. Each die that does not roll character goes to the opponent's use pile. Storm deals 2 damage to your opponent for each of those dice moves. So, which you actually rolled her, so that's perfect. I know we were just talking, that's one of those hard ones to actually get come up face sometimes, but looks like you can do it there.
I do have a double generic, and I have a fist. And so the question is do I waste the 1 generic energy, or do I want to use it for, say, a Wasp Global? And to be honest, I think I'm just going to waste it. I was unable to get the Magic Missile, which is what I really wanted. But before I decide, I'm going to just go ahead and field Storm, and I'm going to choose Fatality and a Sidekick to re-roll. And Fatality came up bolts, and the Sidekick came up bolts. So now my opponent is going to take 4 damage, and those characters both go to the used pile. And I will, you know what? I'm going to waste a generic energy to field my Halfling, and I'm going to spend a fist to make one of the sidekicks block my Halfling, and I'm going to attack with my Halfling and put 2 sidekicks in the bag. Now, he's still going to reset his bag, but I know that at least 2 of the dice he's going to draw are sidekicks, guaranteed. So even that little bit really helps.
My question for you is, why not the Storm instead?
You're absolutely right. I should have, or should be, attacking with Storm as well. So, Jordan, before we resolve that, I jumped ahead and I resolved the Halfling's ability before I declared all of my attackers. But yeah, so I'm also attacking with Storm because either it's 2 damage or it's a dead Storm and I get to roll her again next turn. So, and it looks like he's going to take the 2 damage, which in my opinion was for sure the smart play. And we are going to end our turn and hope he can't get a very lucky 13 damage this turn.
We are going to see potentially, yep, and there it is, a shield agent again. So on his next turn, that could remove that wasp. I think more importantly, it actually gives him a way now to deal the damage with the lantern ring. At this point, it's not enough, even if he converted using the Iceman Global.
Yeah, if he converts with Iceman Global, it's 5 bolts. Like 5 bolts he'll get. So that's 5 damage he could do to me this turn, which is only brings us back to even. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. It's definitely a close game.
I mean, at this point, you've got the next turn. He probably knows he's going to see that halfling thief try and pop off the energy from his used pile back into his bag. But I mean, moving from this point, I don't know what his next move is going to be here. I mean, he has the removal options again with Magic Missile.
But everything's going to cost him too much. He's
Right.
now below 10 health, right? So he's at that point where globals are very, very expensive. And again, if he gets down to 5, I can just start spamming for the Wasp global and win the game that way.
Definitely. I think that's something that we don't actually think about a lot when we put these teams together, like a lot of people when they're building the teams. But you have to take in consideration what that threshold is. And I think generally speaking, 10 is the toughest part to come back from. Once you're half-life, unless you have some kind of life gain or unless it's far enough where the board state is more in your favor, that the game probably is going to shift towards your opponent. But definitely I think you have to take that in consideration when you're building your teams as well. Again, I don't know how much people look at that, but I think that that's definitely something to take in consideration. Now he's got a few options. Again, he can Mystic Box if he wanted, global-wise. He can hold on for a distraction. He can Magic Missile. But like you said, all of that's really just going to hurt him in the end. So he's going to go ahead and end his turn. I think it's definitely a smart move on his part with that halfling thief still out on the field. So on your turn, you're looking at definitely some great options here. Storm and that Magic Missile.
Yep, we'll see how it goes. And that is not a good thing. I'm going to keep this fist just in case, and I'm going to reroll everything else to see if I get lucky. And that is just barely lucky. All right, I will begin things by fielding Storm, and I'm going to reroll the the Shield Agent and 1 Sidekick. Oh, the Shield Agent came up level 2, but the Sidekick goes to the used pile, and he takes 2 damage. And I'm going to field my Sidekick here.
So again, at this point, you've got 2 damage in your hand to deal either directly to him or to that character. If you clear the character, he blocks your highest attacker.
Yeah, it looks like this is a lethal swing, but I'm going to pass to see if he can do anything to stop my lethal, because he at best can block 2 of my characters, which leaves 4 characters unblocked, which is a minimum of 4 damage, obviously.
He does have distraction, but it will cost him a life to distract. So
right, so it's
taking damage.
Yeah, it's still 3 damage. Magic Missile will do 2, and the distract will do 1, so it's still 4 damage. So it looks like it's still lethal one way or the other. But like I said, I passed to Jordan to see if there's anything he can do. I'm hopeful that he finds a solution, because I love it when you can pull out like a clutch save like that. And it's one of the things I love to see. It would be 2 damage from Magic Missile, and then these 2 would get blocked. That would go in the bag. And, oh, okay. He blocks like that. Oh, and he distracts the Storm. So, oh. He took 2 damage from Magic Missile, which put him at 3, and there are 3 sidekicks coming through. And he took 1 damage from distraction because he distracted my Wasp. So, yeah, that's his best play, and it still puts him at 0.
Right, so it looks like that is game. Thanks again, Jordan, for coming in here and playing. And I know that was a tough matchup. You both very different styles, very aggressive style versus a very control style. But you know, Shadowmeld, you were able to pull it out.
The game could have gone vastly different if Jordan had not missed his first lantern ring. I was still at 13 life, and he missed 2 whole turns of basically his entire team. It's a big deal when you miss that lantern ring, and it buys the control team a lot of time to get set up and get going.
Well, thanks again, nefarious geneticist, for showing us what this team is and how to play it. Check out more of our videos at thereservepool.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Make sure you get these videos first. Thanks again for joining us here in the lab. We'll see you next week.
Later.
From my hand, why don't people understand my intention?